Straight from the man cave Kinnick under the kitchen, Randy Engel, a longtime supporter of the Hawkeyes and from the Hawkeye of the Storm, has created so much licensed, authentic, original Hawkeye artwork featuring so many of your favorite Hawkeyes, from Brad Banks to Reese Vanderzee, from Chuck Long to Caleb Johnson to Spencer Lee, and the list goes on and on. Be sure you check out the Under the Kitchen art stand each year at Fry Fest. Visit Under the Kitchen on Facebook and check out the entire selection of signed and unsigned prints available at underthekitchen.square.site. That's underthekitchen.square.site. Check out Under the Kitchen today and get your authentic, original Hawkeye print. We appreciate Under the Kitchen once again for being with us. Randy has been a proud supporter from the Hawkeye of the Storm for years now. And we appreciate the support that all of our sponsors have given, because we are back for yet another year of Iowa postgame with this guy, Coach Don Patterson, who's with us once again here in 2025. Don, it's been a long summer, as it always is, because we miss football. It's way too short of a season, but when it's back, we take a lot of joy in the months of August and September. At least I do. Once Big Ten Media Day hits, it feels like we're all full board ahead.
It is absolutely the best time of the year.
So that's what I want to start with, Don. Tell me about what this time of year is like for coaches. What's it like for coaches, for players? It's the best time of the year, I would assume, not just for you as a fan, but for you as a coach.
Well, there's a lot of anticipation that goes with it, especially for the newcomers, because they think they have an idea of what's going to happen, but of course they might be in for a few surprises here and there. For the veterans, it's not that big a deal. The one thing they do know, I better pay a price over the summer. Otherwise, the month of August is going to be brutal. You got to prepare for what's coming. And believe me, the coaches expect nothing less than a strong commitment in the months of June and July.
What have you garnished from this group? I know they lost a lot of leadership with guys like Jay Higgins leaving, and say what you want about Cade McNamara. He was the starter at quarterback for 2 years. He, of course, is gone. Their quarterback room looks completely different, Don. I mean, it's just totally an overhaul, with the exception being Jackson Stratton. You lose a couple of long-time starters up front in Mason Richmond, Connor Colby, and then you lose a veteran on the defensive side in the backfield in not just Sebastian Castro, but I was thinking Jamari Harris. Y.A. Black, you lose up on the front lines on the defensive end or defensive tackle spot. So yeah, I mean, there's some holes there. What do you perceive the leadership of this team to look like? Kirk acted like it's strong. At least his words at Big Ten Media Day would indicate such.
It's hard to know unless you're on the inside. I'm not sure. I'll be in practice here in the next few days, and you'll get a little better idea then, of course. But I don't really know what's happened over the summer. And obviously the leadership in the summer is entirely different than it was last fall. The good news, of course, is they've been together throughout the spring semester too. So leaders have emerged, you can bet on it. The first one that comes to mind for me is the guy that just joined us not very long ago, and that would be Mark Gronkowski. I have every reason to believe that Mark has already established himself as a leader on the team. And that wouldn't count for much, except there are so many others. You mentioned losing a couple of key offensive linemen. The good news is we got a couple that are back too, that have played a ton of football for us and played well. Those guys will be leaders in the offensive front. You can bet on that.
What makes you think Mark Gronkowski will be able to acclimate himself, or has acclimated himself, to that leadership role?
He's a bright guy. I know he certainly leads by example. I know Kirk's been impressed with his commitment to the program. He's put a ton of time into the preparation for this fall. Obviously not 100% healthy for a good portion of that time. But even then, mental reps count for a lot. And I know he's been going through the mental exercise of being our starting quarterback. And as you know, Corey, my first knowledge about Gronkowski came back in the fall of 22. A lot of our listeners aren't aware of this, but I was working a game back then. It was South Dakota State at Missouri State. It was in September. It was 90 degrees at kickoff. It was a brutal day to play football. The rest of the story, I remembered he played well, and I even told him this. I said, I remember you played well, but I did go back and look at the numbers just to confirm it. I still remember those numbers, Corey, and I'll share them now. 19 for 29 for 319 yards and 4 touchdowns as a sophomore. That's pretty good.
That was against who?
That was against Missouri State. Not the best of FCS football, but certainly above average.
Yeah.
An above average opponent. Oh, by the way, the coach for Missouri State that day was a name you're familiar with. Name's Bobby Petrino. So it's not like Missouri State doesn't have some idea of football, too. Here's what really impressed me about the game, Corey. After 3 quarters, it was 14-all. And with the game on the line, Mark leads them down the field not once but twice. And those 2 touchdowns were 2 touchdown passes, of course. Final was 28-14.
Just so people are aware, I mean, if you're new to this show, you've not been introduced to Don. I'm sure we get new people every offseason, Don, so it'd be a disservice to them to not kind of get them up to speed as to who you are. For those that don't know, you coached in the Missouri Valley, although it was called something else before.
The Gateway Football Conference.
The Gateway Football Conference. But, I had this conversation with Tyler Kluver on Sunday. We recorded a show, and we were just talking about Mark acclimating himself and the step up in competition. What cancels out what, right? Like you have better receivers, better tight ends, a better line around you theoretically, but you're also going up against better defensive linemen, better linebackers, bigger road crowds, etc. I mean, you get down the list there. But I brought up the conference. It's the best conference in the FCS, and there's really no debate about that. And it has been the best conference for a long time. Right?
Many years. Even when I went there, Corey, I'll share this with you. Here's what I told Western Illinois when I first arrived. I said, the bad news, guys, I can't help you get to Pasadena. But the good news, if we end up in Chattanooga, you're going to think it's Pasadena. At the time, Chattanooga was the site of the national championship game. Now it's on an even bigger stage. As you know, it's played in a Dallas suburb. It is on national TV. I don't know how many people watch, but it's certainly comparable to a TV audience of a typical Big Ten game. It's at least that many people, if not more. And he played well in not one, but 2 championship games, right? I believe that's right. He's played in 2 different ones. He's been very good under poise. One other story to back up what I'm saying, I got out of the blue, even before I knew Mark was coming. I heard from one of my ex-players, former players at Western Illinois. He said, Coach, I'm really excited to hear you're going to get my all-time favorite recruit, I guess you can call him. J.R. Nicholas is a sports trainer in Chicagoland, and he trained Mark Gronkowski as a 9th grader and a 10th grader and an 11th grader. He said, Coach, you're my all-time favorite coach. He's my all-time favorite prospect that I've worked with. I've got great respect for that young man because he is driven to be the best. That's coming from a guy that played in the NFL.
Tell me why, and this is just get the cat out of the bag. Tell me why this experiment, 1 year, by the way, 1 year of eligibility. Tell me why this experiment is going to work better than the Cade McNamara experiment. Tell me why this is going to work when that one, you could argue very easily, did not.
I understand that. And the best explanation I have, Corey, I think I've mentioned this on the air. If not, I'm happy to mention it now. Even before Cade arrived at Iowa's campus, as they were getting ready to play against Iowa in Indianapolis for the Big Ten title a few years ago, I made the comment then. I said, he's a game manager. He's not a difference maker. I'm not trying to beat him up. That's just who he is. The NFL backs me up on that. My guess is he didn't have much interest from the NFL. Otherwise, he wouldn't be coming back for another year of college football. And again, Cade's a wonderful young man, but he's simply a game manager and not a difference maker. I think Mark Gronkowski projects better for the NFL without question than Cade. And again, I'm not trying to beat up Cade. I'm just being entirely honest.
It sounds like there's he would have gotten drafted or at least looked at strongly had he left for the league. I mean, he's got some accolades. And again, you talk about the FCS, but it's been the best program in the FCS for the last 5 years. And by the way, yeah, played in a couple of national championships, also lost in the national semifinals last year to, by the way, the other dominant power of the 21st century, North Dakota State, and competed well in that game. So they've been really good. He won what's the award? I should know this. I should have looked it up before we hopped on the air, Don, but what's the national award that's given to the best player in the FCS that we all
You're right. I should know that too, because it's a guy that went on to have a big NFL career, but I'm trying to think of who it is now. I can't remember.
Okay.
I'm embarrassed to say that, but I can't recall.
It is the Walter Payton.
Yeah, he was pretty good, wasn't he?
Pretty good. Yeah.
By the way, he went to a small school.
Rings a bell. Yeah. So, the accolades are there. The transition, we haven't seen it. The other concern that I think fans had when it initially broke that he was coming, and then all of a sudden we get, he's going to be out for the spring with a shoulder injury. It's like, here we go again with the injury bug. But I hope people really listen to what you just said as it relates to why it's going to be different. I mean, he's dealt with some injuries. He did deal with a serious knee injury as an underclassman. That's a fact, right? There's no escaping that. But he has proven to be able to stay healthy since then. The shoulder thing was, I don't want to say it was insignificant because it wasn't, but you could almost call it maintenance related for somebody who's been throwing the football for as many years as he has. Is that fair, Don?
Yeah, you just have to go back to that game against North Dakota State. I watched that game in its entirety, and they lost the game. But just so you know, if you're playing in Fargo, it's an indoor facility with a wonderful fan base. One of my all-time favorite wins as a head coach was in Fargo, because at the time we beat them up there, I think you could count the number of games they had lost in that building almost on one hand. They're almost unbeatable in there. South Dakota State lost to them last winter. That's all true. But it was a tight game that could have gone either way, and Mark played just fine, even though, again, there was a lot of pressure on a visitor's field.
It's amazing all the people in the chat, Don, who are screaming how great it is to have you back. That's an indication that football's right around the corner as well. So here's the deal, folks. We're going to keep this pretty simple tonight. We're not going to be taking calls, okay? We're going to be taking calls all season long. So what I really wanted to spend the next hour plus doing is just running through all three units, offense, defense, special teams, and looking at the best, or I should say the most significant battles this camp. And then once we get closer to the season, Don, you and I will get together. We'll talk about the season, just preview everything, including the schedule. We're not going to look at the schedule tonight. We still got a month left before we hit the season. We are officially 1 month out from the start of the 2025 season. So we're going to look at each unit. Thank you to everybody who's here. YouTube sucks. Kelvin Fisher, Cyhawk C Money, all these familiar faces, names in the chat. Appreciate you being here and supporting. If you do have a question for Don, you certainly can throw it up in the live chat. We're just not going to be taking calls tonight. So we're going to try to keep this as action-packed and content-oriented as possible, Don, over the next hour. So let's just start at the top. We've been talking about quarterbacks, so we might as well just hit offense as a whole. Everybody's curious of what this offense is going to look like in year 2 under Tim Lester. There were some comments made the other night with Tyler on our show that raised my eyebrow, and some facts, I guess, that have been written about by reporters, etc., that I wasn't able to verify. One of which was that Iowa reportedly is the only offense in the country running the Shanahan system. Do you believe that to be true?
No.
Well, that's what was said.
That's for a definitive answer. I'm shocked.
And Tyler wasn't the one who came up with that, but he's saying that has been said, that there's no one else in the country running the Shanahan offense. And when I brought this up to was it Mark yesterday, we were talking about just how there's going to be different offenses across the country that are going to run variations of the Shanahan offense, and there's going to be Shanahan concepts in there, right? The wide zone. I mean, can you explain the uniqueness of what Tim Lester has brought to Iowa? How unique is it, and are we overstating that a little bit?
Honestly, I don't think it's that unique. To be honest with you, I'd be very concerned if we were the only ones running the Shanahan offense, because that would suggest, can we be right and everybody else in college football be wrong? I don't think so.
I had the same thought. I had the same thought momentarily.
Yeah. So, the offenses from one school to the next are slightly different. You're not a very good coach if you don't have some wrinkles in your offense that no one else has. But to suggest that your offense is entirely unique, that's foolhardy, because there simply aren't that many plays to be run.
Yeah, well, apparently that has been said, that Iowa is the only Shanahan system in college football, which seemed hard to believe just because the Shanahan system has been around for a while now, right? Like, whatever has been trademarked the Shanahan system again.
Tim's not the only offensive coordinator that hadn't spent some time in the NFL and was involved with the Shanahan offense, because there's more than a few of them in the league.
Well, we talked about quarterback. What are the other positions that you're looking at this fall specifically where you think the most significant battles will transpire? I mean, obviously the losing Caleb Johnson's huge. They lose the offensive lineman, but what positions are you looking at the closest this summer?
Yeah, I think wide receiver is a good place to start. As you know, I have a healthy respect already for Jacob Gill. He's a solid player. He was a solid player last fall. So I don't worry about Jacob at all. The question, of course, is he's not nearly going to be the only wide out on the field. I would imagine in general we'll have 3 on the field at one time. But the question, of course, is who's going to get the majority of those snaps. I'm confident in saying Jacob Gill will be one of those 3. You probably have a better idea than I do of which the other 2 are. I will say this. I hope that a guy named Witchin enters into the mix, because I know how capable he is after the catch. His issues, of course, are more with route running and being as reliable with his hands as all those other receivers are. So Witchin is a possibility to give us a boost at receiver, simply because after the catch, he's going to be difficult to deal with. I'd say that. He's proven that as a return specialist, of course. Van der Zee is a tall guy that presents mismatch. I hope he comes back strong. I think he will. It's a long season, though, as you mentioned, Corey. We're a month away from game 1, and there's a lot of snaps between now and then. And, of course, those snaps are necessary, but part of the negative on those snaps over the next month, there's a risk of injury. So you can bet on it right now. There's going to be 1 or more players, hopefully not in key roles, but entirely possible that they're in key roles, that are down with an injury for game 1. I hope it's not any of our key players, of course. We're going to protect them as best we can. But the last time I checked, people say, well, football's a contact sport. No, dancing's a contact sport. Football's a collision sport. And so they do the best they can to make it do count. They minimize that contact, of course, but you still have to prepare for the game. And in that regard, there's got to be some contact.
Wide receiver is fascinating because I think they're stronger collectively than they have been. You could argue, and we'll see. I hate to be one of those guys, Don, that just says all these things. I mean, every year you have media, and I'm not just talking about Iowa media, but just media people in general that love to just glob all kinds of goop all over what we're going to see. Oh, it's going to be the second coming of, Niall Kinnick. And, I don't know what the receiver room is going to look like. I do think it's going to be a lot better. And I know people loved the quote from Kirk Ferentz the other day about how he feels like he did with the offensive line a year ago. Like he felt like the offensive line was finally coming along. He feels the same way about receivers. That's great. I love hearing that.
Right.
But I've seen way too much mediocrity at receiver for too long to just buy that hook, line, and sinker, especially from a guy who, last I checked, is an O-line guy, not a receivers guy. When Tim Lester says it, when I hear Tim Lester say this is one of the best receiver groups I've ever coached, then I'm going to start sweating, all right? Then I'll have some sweaty palms to talk about.
I got out on a limb and suggest you're probably not going to hear that out of Tim.
So my point stands, but I do think it's going to be a stronger group collectively, and we can give credit to Budmeyer or Lester. We got to see it transpire first. But top to bottom, I do think they're going to have maybe 8 to 9 guys that they can throw out on the field. And I don't remember the last. I mean, we just a couple of years ago, Don, the second and third guys were like walk-ons.
Right.
I mean, you're talking like Alec Wick and Jack Johnson at times.
Well, you know this, Corey. It is a battle of attrition over the season, and you have to have depth. If you don't have depth, you're going to be really, really lucky to not suffer due to injuries.
Yeah.
So the backups are critical, and healthy competition is such a wonderful thing. And I think we have that at receiver.
So I would go a step further and say I think they're collectively as strong as they have been. who will emerge? I don't know that I have a great feel for that. I would like to think Weegen could be one of the three, given his natural speed, quickness, and just his ability. I can't imagine he's that far behind with route running. You always talk about how size is overrated with receiver position. Tim has proven throughout his coaching tenure, whether it be at Western Michigan or now at Iowa, with who he's recruited, brought in. Sam Phillips is a 5'9" guy out of the FCS. He's not real concerned with getting these tall freaks. And they have their prototypical X on the receivers on the roster, and Dayton Howard, Reese Vanderzee. But what I'm just curious to see is if Weegen can develop into one of those three. If not, I think Gill, what you said, absolutely. Gill, 1, 2. I think Sam Phillips. I mean, again, it's apples to oranges because you're trying to compare FCS football to FBS football. But what stands out on tape, the smoothness that he runs with, his soft hands, and he's got really good speed. We'll see if it translates. I don't know, but Iowa brought him in for a reason. He was very productive at Chattanooga. Don, again, I'll rely on you as the FCS GOAT. Is Chattanooga anything to write home about in the FCS?
We're talking about an individual player, so even if I cannot extol all the virtues of Chattanooga football, it doesn't mean they don't have Division I talent.
Yeah.
Even the lesser programs might have one player that can play in the Big Ten.
How about Minnesota's quarterback a year ago that came from New Hampshire? So that's a good example of it. So I think Sam Phillips will work in there. Yeah. So then third, Gill, Phillips, and then, hey, battle between Weegen, Seth Anderson. There's a kid we haven't talked about a ton. Jarrett Bowie has played a decent amount. And I'll tell you another guy, Don, this might be my biggest dark horse of any position heading into fall camp, based on just chatter that I've heard all offseason, and that is KJ Parker. His name just keeps getting brought up, and he's the one guy I really have not seen on offense do anything, but I just keep hearing that name. He was one of 3 or 4 guys that Mark took down to Texas to train in the summer in a small group. That kind of made me raise my eyebrow a bit. So, and then, Dayton Howard, Reese Vanderzee, we haven't brought those guys up. And then you're looking at maybe some freshmen and walk-ons, but the depth is impressive what they've been able to do. And I did think last year we saw maturation from some of those guys, especially when Seth Anderson finally got healthy. Reese Vanderzee, I know, struggled with injuries last year. If he can stay healthy, he's got a chance to really take a big leap forward in year 2. Running back, they lose Caleb. Kamari Moulton's back. Jazz Patterson's back. I would think that group is going to be a running back by committee anyways, because I just can't imagine somebody emerging like Caleb did last year. Between Jazz and Kamari, to me, neither one of those guys, maybe it's just because they don't look that part, right, but I would think they're going to be a running back by committee. So I'm not that I don't care about that. And I think Nate McNeil, I've heard good things about him, young freshman, maybe could figure in some touches. And that's a position that you're going to need depth too, because the injury bug is going to occur. But just your thoughts on tailback.
Well, I feel like you do, Corey. I'm not sure who's going to win out. I'm not going to lose 1 minute of sleep over it either, because I think I would see this happening. If we only play 2 running backs, it's going to be those 2. And I would predict the mix might be 60-40, something like that. Might be 55-45. There's going to be a fairly equal sharing of snaps. And as you've heard me say before, Corey, that is so important because it means we never have to play with a tired running back. That's critical. And, of course, it goes without saying that if you have a chance to not be so tired, then you have a better chance to stay healthy too.
Tight end. Last year we saw a bit of a drop in offensive production, catches, etc. Is this the end? Did we see the end of tight end U with the inception of this new style offense with Tim Lester? I mean, based on just a little bit of evidence last year, one could make that argument. Don, you're shaking your head. You think they're going to involve the tight end more?
I'll predict right now, our number 1 personnel group is going to be 11 personnel. And for those that don't know, 11 simply means 1 back, 1 tight end. That would mean 3 receivers. And it goes without saying, of course, 3 receivers, 1 back, 1 tight end, and obviously 5 linemen. That's always the case. But 3 receivers would be the rest of that equation. I think that'd be the number one formation that we would use, personnel grouping, I should say. And you can do a lot of things formation-wise with 11 personnel, and I would expect that we'll do that. It's a good formation. It gives you a chance to still run the ball well because you do have, unless you choose otherwise, you have an attached tight end, so you don't have two short edges. You know what I mean, Corey, by a short edge. If you only have a guard and a tackle on that side of the formation, that's a short edge. If you have a tight end next to a tackle, now you can do more with a wider front on your offensive line, and that would include a tight end, of course.
By the way, this is totally unrelated to football. A little birdie just told me that our fine producer, who's working behind the scenes tonight, just set a goal of 5 orange super chats, and they did pass this by me earlier, and I gave him permission. 5 orange super chats, and you'll finally get me to shave. So for some reason, somebody has been, I don't know. I don't know why people are concerned about people having facial hair, but people have been lobbying for me to shave for the last year. And so they wanted me to give a number. And so if we achieve that number, I'm actually kind of hoping we don't, because I don't really want to have to shave. I promise I will go away and shave while on the air, Don. And you're going to have to carry this. I might have to actually bring the guy. I may have to bring somebody in here to co-host with you while I do that. But
well, since you brought it up, I couldn't help but notice. I just thought of it. There is a guy right now that's prominent in the news that is a handsome guy, just as you are, that resembles you more than just a little bit.
Oh no!
And you're not going to be able to guess it, maybe, but I'll mention it.
I've heard names. Can I just guess?
How about a guy that might be our next mayor of New York City? How about him?
Okay, you're not going to be able. I'm not going to be able to figure that one out. I thought you were going to say Ben Shapiro. Go ahead.
Google Mamdani and take a look. He looks a little bit.
What's this guy's name, Don?
Mamdani is his last name. Mamdani, I think.
Mamdani.
Mamdani.
Oh, Zoran.
Yeah.
Zoran.
Can you put his picture in place of mine? I'm just curious what the resemblance might be.
I shouldn't have even acknowledged the super chat.
Well, when you acknowledge this, he's a handsome guy, right? So in that regard.
Yes, he's a handsome guy, Mark. Don. Yeah. Why do I keep calling you Mark?
I don't know.
Yeah, he's a decent looking guy. Yeah. Here, I'll go ahead and throw up. I can't believe we're talking about this, but let me throw up a. Can I throw this up in the?
I'd be happy to leave for a second.
No, I'll.
Oh, we're gonna be a threesome.
No, I'm gonna throw this up if it'll let me do it. Yeah, let me. Here,
is it a Mamdani sandwich?
I know how to do it here. Okay. Let me share my screen for anybody that
does. This is a new moment in your show, Corey. I don't think we've ever.
We've done some dumb things before, Don. Okay. This is the guy you're talking about?
I rest my case.
All right. His beard, everything, his facial hair is a lot fuller. I mean, he's got black hair. My hair's dark brown. But yeah, I can see some resemblance there. I think he's probably got some makeup on here, right? Most of these politicians, movie stars, whenever they're going before a camera or a microphone, they got makeup on. So he's glimmering. He's glimmering.
You don't have any makeup on, Corey?
We have not yet gotten. We're doing this test run with this producer tonight, and if it doesn't run, it's not going to be an every night thing. But that's about the best I can do. If I get a makeup crew, Don, you'll know I hit it big. So, anyways, all right. Moving on to offensive line. I alluded to Mason Richmond leaving, Connor Colby. You got the Logan Jones return, and people. I don't know where this is coming from, other than just optimism and people having a lot of respect for the Kirk Ferentz offensive line. But they've got Logan Jones and right tackle Jennings Dunker as like 2 of the 3 or 4 best linemen in the Big Ten. Right. I have a lot of respect for both those guys. That number surprised me, given the programs that are in this conference, given the fact that you have 18 of them now. Right. So that really surprises me, and I'm no O-line expert, but talk about offensive line, your level of confidence, and what battles. I'm assuming you're going to say left tackle and one of the guard spots opposite Bo Stevens, but what battles are you looking at this fall?
Well, you've heard me say this before, Corey, and this seems like the right time to bring it up again. The cautionary note I would offer to a good Iowa fan, understand that if you're really solid at 4 out of 5 positions, that doesn't solve all your problems. We talked about an All-American center that's playing for the Baltimore Ravens now, and he blocked his guy every time. The only problem is we didn't have to worry about his man. We just had to worry more about the other 4. Can they get their blocks? So the challenge, of course, is to put 5 guys out there that can play winning football, because even one guy that is defeated might ruin the play. That's the truth about offensive line play. I do have great faith in George. I think he's an excellent teacher. I do think he understands how to motivate players. Let's not forget that we have another offensive line coach by the name of Kirk Ferentz that's right there with him. And I know Kirk spends a lot of his time with the offensive line. So those guys are going to develop well. The concern I have, of course, you got to have a lot of them. Bare minimum, you got to have 8. We talked about that being the minimum. I'm saying 8 guys that can play winning football against anyone and everyone. And the number is 8 because you need a backup center and you need a guard that can play both left and right, that can flip from one side to the other, and a tackle that can do the same thing, play both left and right. And that gives you a chance. Now, even then, of course, you're hoping for no more than 1 injury over the course of the season at center, at guard, and at tackle. So if you have 2 injuries at one position, now it's trickier because you got to move a guard to a tackle or a tackle to a guard, things like that. So I think George would say we're at least feeling pretty strongly about 8 guys, I'm guessing. The challenge over camp is to be able to say that about 10 or more. Hopefully we can get there. No guarantees, but I know they're going to be dedicated to getting it done. And I do also know those players, maybe more importantly, those players are motivated to get it done. They're the ones that have to do all the hard work.
Player to watch, definitely. I in my opinion, player to watch during camp. And you could name some young guys. There's certainly plenty of them that could factor in. Trevor Lauk, Cade Pieper, go down the list. But one guy that I'm looking for specifically is the kid they brought in as a 1-year transfer. So he's got 1 year of eligibility, unless the rules for eligibility change, because he's coming over from D2. But that's Bryce George. And Bryce played a lot of right. I think go back and look at my notes and look at his film, right and left during his career. I could be wrong on that. He was at Ferris State. And when I talked to Bryce and looked at his film, the two agreed. And I asked him this before I gave him my thought. I said, do you consider yourself a better pass protector or run blocker? What do you think's your strong suit? What do you think he said, Don?
Well, I hope he said, of course, you can't have a one-dimensional player.
I know.
But it all starts with being able to run the football. So if he doesn't take great pride in his run blocking, then he's not going to be what we need. So I hope he said run if he had to pick one or the other.
Oh, he said pass. He's a better pass protector.
So now I'm a little bit concerned.
No, don't be concerned, I'll tell you why.
Okay.
And maybe you're looking at this from an analytical approach, and I'm not. But what has Iowa struggled with primarily over the at least last year? It wasn't running the football; it was protecting the quarterback. I'm more concerned with my left tackle protecting the quarterback, and I get it. They all play a role in creating space for your running backs to move. But tell me why I'm wrong on that, Don.
We know what we call that piece of real estate on the field. That's the blind side.
Yep.
So you got to be good at left tackle.
But he does have hot feet. It appears to me on tape that he's got hot feet. And that's what I saw when I watched him before talking to him. I'm like, yeah, he's a better pass pro guy than he is. I don't see the dominant run blocker.
Here's a question for you, Corey. I am aware that Pieper won the hay bale toss competition.
Yes, he did.
Is that a good sign?
That's the second or third straight year, correct? I think he's only been in college for 2 years. So.
Well, I thought that Dunker won it last year, but maybe I'm wrong.
No, Pieper has won it for at least the last 2 years. Yeah.
Okay, I stand corrected.
Yeah. Okay, so you're telling, and I just want to. There's no dumb questions on here. So this has nothing to do with schematics. But I'm not saying that you'd have issues executing. Obviously, we see right-handed quarterbacks hand the ball left, etc. But my point is, typically in general, aren't you going to see more runs to the right with a right-handed quarterback? That has nothing to do with it.
I don't think so. Let's not forget one of our play action passes is naked, but we fake left and roll right, don't we?
Yeah, no, I'm not saying they run. I'm not. Yeah, I stand corrected on that. Obviously, they run both directions, but I'm just wondering too, especially with Dunker being this run grader that we perceive him to be. I would think they're going to continue to. I would guess they're going to run. I don't know if it's 60 to 65% more right than left.
I hope not, because defenses figure that stuff out too.
You can't be perfectly 50-50.
But ideally, you're somewhat balanced.
Okay.
Running both left and right.
Yeah.
May not work out that way. Obviously, you play to your strength. But let's not forget, it also involves matchups on the other side of the line of scrimmage. So sometimes the best matchup might not be in front of your best offensive lineman. Maybe the better matchup is a slightly less effective run blocker on our side versus a weak link on the other team's side.
Well, this is why you are the coach and I am the host, and this is why you're here, so that when I make dumb comments that don't make sense, you correct them. And
well, it's all about matchups, and sometimes the matchup might not be entirely obvious because it might not be behind your best O-line blocker.
So Mark Engel makes it very clear he wants me to shave. So I think we need 7 more of these, and I will shave. It is a sacrifice to me, and trying to put a price tag on something that I've took some level of pride in over the last year.
So Mark, it involves the loss of my mustache. That's all I care about.
How much would it take to shave your mustache, Don? Because here's the deal: if we get enough super chats for me to shave my face entirely, it's going to be $200, but it's not going to. It's YouTube takes what 33% of that, so it's hard to put a dollar figure on part of your being, Don. What would it take for you to shave the mustache?
I'm trying to think of the last time I shaved. It's been a long time.
Would there be any amount?
In my defense, football related, I have a scar up here under my mustache. I think it's right over here, I think.
Okay.
I got sacked one time, lost my mouthpiece, and bit through my lip. And so there's a scar underneath that mustache.
Ooh,
and I'm pretty sure it hasn't gone away. It's still there. So that's one more reason why I better hang on to my mustache. I'm not going to look any better if I show my scar.
So no amount?
No amount.
All right. I can be bought, Don. It's obvious I can be bought. So
I probably shouldn't offer up the chance that I might shave my head either, because I'm pretty sure there's some bumps on my skull that aren't worth looking at either.
All right. So we've talked O-line. You set me straight there. Let's move over to we talked tight end. So are we done with offense? I guess. Talk quarterback.
We pretty much are. Yeah, we pretty much are.
So I guess let's finish up with this question from T. Hink in the chat. He said, "What would a successful year in the passing game look like?"
Well, I hate to just assign a yardage number to it. That's difficult. I don't really pay much attention to how many yards you throw for, all that stuff. I'd love to say it. If I want to tie it into anything, I'd tie it into yards per attempt. Incidentally, one of the things I did with this year's analytics, I took the time, I evaluated 3 new potential parameters that I haven't studied in the past to see if they deserve to be included. I'll tell you what all 3 of them were. One of them was simply yards per snap. Okay, we know that total offense is important, but is it possible that yards per snap might give an even higher winning percentage associated with it? The answer is no, it doesn't. I'll pull up the numbers right quick because I'm curious. I might be a little bit off with them, so I won't quote them, but yards per snap is 1. It failed the test. Bear with me, Corey. It's going to take a minute or two to find the page. Getting close. The second one, as I go along here, I can talk about it. It's not rushing yardage. It's simply yards per rushing attempt. You think that might be worth knowing?
I would think so.
It's worth knowing, but it's not any better than rushing yardage. You follow me? You don't need both because I found them. Considering new parameters, average gain per play, 76%. Okay? That's the winning percentage associated with it. You might say, that sounds pretty good. It is identical to the average gain per play would be equal to, of course, the total offense. Total offense is also 76%. Same percentage. We don't need both. And we've had total offense as a measure forever and ever. Amen, right? The next is rushing yards per carry. That winning percentage is 73% of the time. That's actually 7% lower than the percentage produced by the parameter of rushing yardage. So forget about yards per rushing attempt. It's not as valid as more rushing yardage. Last but not least, how about any edge in passing yards per attempt? That was a 74% winning percentage, which is a full 20% higher than pass completions. I'm forgetting about pass completions. It has no validity at all compared to yards per attempt in the passing game. So we're going to be charting yards per attempt from this point forward. And we'll see how well it holds up. But 74%, as you know, that's pretty good. That's going to be in the middle of the pack or maybe a little bit higher.
Okay. Is there, you want to put a number on this? Like as far as national ranking with pass offense? Is there?
I got you. If you just want to talk about yards, I'd like to think we were conveniently somewhere at least in the middle. Where did we finish last year, Corey? You can tell I don't really care that much about where we finished.
Yeah, and if we're talking, we looked up total offense the other day. They were 117 in total offense.
That low. Yeah.
But caveat. Remember, they went from not only being worse, but being so far below the next. You know what I'm saying? Like there was a big gap between them and the team above them.
My guess is in passing yardage, pass offense, we're probably triple digits there too last year. Don't know that, but I suspect we are. I'd be shocked if we're not.
Let's see here. Pass offense in 2025 or 2024, excuse me. Iowa was 129 out of 133.
I didn't think it was quite that low.
That's what this says.
Here's a reasonable goal. Let's be double digits, not triple. That's doable. We might get that done. It's something to shoot for.
Yeah, they definitely got out of the total cellar that they were in under Brian. But this is the year where you'd have to think there's going to be a bigger jump. Now, there were bigger jumps in other categories. Obviously, rush offense was the biggest jump. Like, they went from not being able to run the ball at all to being a dominant run team last year. So let's not totally dump on Tim Lester because the offense did improve substantially.
And most importantly, we made a pretty significant jump in terms of scoring offense, right?
Scoring offense. And they obviously struggled to throw the ball, not making excuses, but part of that was because of the run success. You would think that would help, but they're going to throw the ball less, right? But they also had tons of issues with quarterbacks' health. And yeah, they had some of that under Brian as well. But quarterback health, receiver health, and I do think just the simple fact that Tim is going to be working with more of his own guys now, Don, I just have to think that's going to be a factor here. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to switch to defense and special teams. So, folks, keep it locked right here. More with that guy on your right, Coach Don Patterson, and yours truly, Corey Brada here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. We'll be back with more during our fall camp preview show right here from the Hawkeye of the Storm.
What if one dog could teach a child to never give up? Maya the Malamute, a spark of courage, tells the true story of Maya, the smallest of 10 puppies. The runt of the litter, she barely survived. Then, at just 9 weeks old, she was struck with a life-threatening illness. But Maya's spark of courage never faded. Today, Maya is the only certified therapy dog visiting children every week at the U of I's Stead Family Children's Hospital, the same kids we honor with the Hawkeye Wave. When Maya enters a hospital room, faces light up, and for a moment, children facing their toughest battles rediscover hope. This book shares her story, inspiring Iowa's kids to find their own courage. Every purchase or donation supports Maya's Spark of Courage Foundation, which provides these books and others like them to children during hospital visits completely free of charge. A gift of hope they can take home. Learn more or order your copy at mayathemalamute.com. Together, we can help even more Iowa kids find their spark of courage. Let me introduce you to one of the proud supporters of From the Hawkeye of the Storm, Iowa floor covering down in Bondurant. Now, for the last year and a half, you've heard me talk about this great company in the heart of central Iowa. They've got their tough core, click together, 4.5 millimeter waterproof vinyl flooring, great for you DIYers out there. But even if you're just a contractor or you need a different type of flooring, they've got you covered, whether it be tile showers, carpet. Give Iowa Floor Covering a chance to serve you better and serve your flooring needs. Visit them online at iowafloorcovering.com. That's iowafloorcovering.com, or you can give them a call at 515-379-7000. That's 515-379-7000. Thank you to Iowa Floor Covering in Bondurant.
Iowa Floor Covering and the great foundation that is Maya's Spark of Courage with us for this preseason Iowa Football 2025 edition, and you can support the great cause that is this book and the work that is being done to get those young, brave children in the Children's Hospital a copy of this book and lighten their spirits. So great work being done by Jeff Knight down in, Central. He's a Central Iowa guy as well, and of course, Iowa Floor Covering Central Iowa, Randy Engel Central Iowa, and speaking of Randy Engel, he wanted me to let everybody know that Stephen Buchanan, Angelo Ferrari, they will be live with Randy and his Under the Kitchen stand at the Lantern Park Hy-Vee on August 17th, 3 to 4 p.m. Central Time, signing their prints. Okay, really cool opportunity to get your print signed. Again, Lantern Park, Coralville Hy-Vee, August 17th, 3 to 4 p.m. Get your signed print from Angelo Ferrari and Stephen Buchanan. We're back here with Coach Don Patterson as we preview Iowa football's 2025 fall camp, and we're moving to the defensive side of the ball. We're talking about battles and positions that need settled over the coming weeks. And Don, let's start with the defensive line. Lost some pieces, most specifically Y.A. Black is a guy that Iowa will miss. Joe Evans seemed like he was there forever, but Y.A. was there a long time as well. And now the veteran up front really is Aaron Graves alongside Ethan Herkett, those two guys leading the charge. Max Llewellyn is a young up-and-comer who I think he's got a possibility of being a great edge rusher for Iowa this year. You brought in a couple of transfers, Jonah Pace from Central Michigan, Bryce Hawthorne, South Dakota State, and some other maybe more unknowns. Brian Allen's played some. We know Kenneth Merriweather's a guy, a trendy name to watch. What battles, what positions up front on the defensive line do you think need settled this August?
I'm not sure how it's all going to play out, Corey. And I'll admit that I don't know all the guys by name so well, but I will comment about the ends a little bit. I'll tell you why. I was just looking to see where it finished. Defensive sacks as a parameter finished 5th overall. 78% win. If you have an edge on defensive sacks, you won 78% of the time. That's pretty high. That's the 5th ranked out of 25 parameters. As soon as I realized that, and that's typically where it has been historically, it was down last year. This year it's back up again. So they do matter a lot. And the thing I know from coaching 37 years, we always refer to sacks as drive killers. And it just occurred to me, we say that, but I don't know for sure that that's justified to be said. So I'm going to run a check. Well, I'll tell you exactly what our numbers are from this past season. In 9 conference games, we had a total of 18 sacks, 2 per game. The names you mentioned already, Ethan Herkett and Max Llewellyn, and Aaron Graves, that's right there, half of those sacks. Those three guys, at least half. Maybe more than half. I don't have the raw data in front of me, but I know that those guys had multiple sacks, of course, over the season. So the obvious question, well, in fact, was it a drive killer? Well, in 14 out of 18 cases, it was. In 14 out of 18 cases, Corey, it meant the sack on that series of downs never allowed them to make a first down. They either had to punt. Typically, they punted. In a few cases, as you're well aware, the sack actually generated a turnover. We can talk about that Nebraska game all over again. I'd like to at some point. So the bottom line, they were drive killers 14 out of 18. The obvious question, what happened on those other 4? Why weren't they drive killers? Well, 2 of them, let me back up. 4 times they made a first down, obviously. They earned a new set of downs. So what happened on those 4 possessions? One of them ended in a punt. One of them ended in a expired time at the end of the half. No points. And they only scored on 2 of those 18 sacks. Here's the one that really you'll laugh about. We're playing in the shoe, and I think we had maybe 2nd and 1, I believe. A waste down. They tried to pass. That was our one and only sack. It gave them 3rd and 6. You want to know what happened on 3rd and 6? The longest play that we gave up our entire season, 52 yards. I believe it was a pass and run after the catch. So, yeah, they converted on that series of downs. And furthermore, I think that conversion took them all the way to the 2 or 3 yard line. And a couple of plays later, they scored a touchdown. Excuse me. So one resulted in a touchdown. That's the only time we made an abysmal failure by giving up the longest play of the season for us, 52 yards. Incidentally, I do want to talk about some analytics because you talk about something to be proud of, Corey. Think about this. You might remember what a super explosive play is. A super explosive play is any play.
30 plus.
30 or more. You want to guess how many we gave up in 9 games?
Last year, how many did they give up? They gave up a couple to Michigan State. I would say they gave up 4 in 9 games.
Have you been reading my stuff?
No.
That is exactly correct.
All right, good.
You gave up 4. You go one step further, Corey. 1 play more than 37 yards. 1. That was that Ohio State play.
And were there 2 against Michigan State? Was I right on that? 2 against
I don't recall where the 3 30-somethings were.
Okay.
I do remember that the longest of those 3 was 37.
Okay.
I don't remember which games. But here's the rest of that story. If we gave up 4, who do you think finished second in the Big Ten? Or more importantly, how many did they give up? You want to guess? Compared to our 4.
Do I want to guess? Do I guess the team or just the number?
The number.
The number. I'll say the second best team gave up 9.
Have we talked about this?
Am I right? Am I right again?
That's exactly correct. 2 teams gave up 9.
It's intuition, Don. It's intuition. I
mean, I must have talked to you about all this.
No, you did not talk to me about it before. You did not talk to me about it before. But I'm glad I got it right.
Well,
can I guess the team? Do I get to guess the team as well?
One of them I remember was, well, now I'm not even sure who either one was. I'll be able to tell you in a second. Won't take long.
I think it's
that's
easy,
amazing that you can do that.
Easy guess would be Ohio
I told Phil
State.
Parker, I said, Phil, you guys have so much to be proud of. You gave up 4. A distant second was 9. 9 belonged to Wisconsin. 9 belonged to the Buckeyes of Ohio State.
Okay. I said Ohio State, Don.
9.
Okay.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah, it is.
It is.
And this is an Iowa defense that we kind of said was below what we expected. Still a really good Iowa defense. And
now, don't get me wrong. There were some areas where we were definitely worse.
Yeah.
But one of the trademarks of an Iowa defense, we're not giving up home runs.
Right.
That's never been more true than last fall.
And there have been years where there have been kind of anomalies there, and Iowa's given up more explosive plays and of course, explosive plays. How many explosive plays did they give up last year? 20 plus.
I don't recall. I can look it up because I've got last year's report here too. Incidentally, when you look at explosive, I'm sorry, you asking about explosive?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I guess that as well?
Sure. 9 games, how many?
Well, they gave up, let's see, 4 super explosive all year. All right.
So how many that were 20-something?
Between 20 and 30. I'll say a total of 11.
Well, thank God you missed one. No, we gave up 22. You're being unrealistic to say we gave up 11 in the 20-somethings and 4 more, a total of 15. Nobody's ever come in that low. I don't believe we even did last year either.
Okay.
That'd be incredibly good.
Well, only 4 super explosive plays is incredibly good. So I thought,
that is incredibly good.
Yeah.
Just to give you an idea, the lowest number in here in the 20s is 15, it looks like. Yeah, 15. So 11 is pretty much impossible.
Okay.
Not impossible. We might have done it last year. That's maybe why you have that number in your head. But let's face it. Incidentally, for the first time ever, the winning percentage associated with super explosive moved ahead of explosive. Why is that a good sign for us? Because we're even better defending super explosive. And let's talk about offense. No surprise to you, Corey. We were pretty mediocre looking at explosive plays on offense. We were ranked tied for 12th.
Oh, that's not as bad. That's not as bad as I thought, but that's only because Caleb Johnson broke off a few.
You're right. Now let's ask about offense for super explosive.
I'll say Iowa. They totaled super explosive. We're just talking about 30 plus.
30
I will
plus.
say they had 7 all year.
How about 16?
Wow, 16. Okay, well, 16's better than I would have thought, definitely.
And here's what I'm going to say about 16. The average for those 18 teams of super explosive plays is 13. We were above average for the entire conference.
And yet we were well below. That's interesting.
Well below for explosive.
Right.
But again, if you want to be really good at one or the other, I think I'd rather be really good at the one that has the highest winning percentage.
Sure, yeah.
And last year, for the first time ever, that was super explosive. The home run is becoming more valuable in terms of guaranteeing a win. Doubles are nice, home runs are better.
So going back to the defensive line, Iowa's ability to create more drive killers this year, do you think they have pieces in place to do that with Max Llewellyn and Brian Allen and potentially Bryce Hawthorne, who I know you probably haven't seen a lot of him, but he was another FCS kid, actually played with Mark Gronkowski at South Dakota State. And as a young talent, I think Jonah Pace is going to be more of your steady Eddie vet. But they've got some guys who can get into the backfield, Don. But it's been a while since we've seen a real dominant defensive front to where they are, that you see an AJ Epinesa or a Drew Ott. And Erica brings up Yosei Epinesa. Thank you, Erica, for this super chat. She asks, do you think Yosei could see the field? The only thing I worry about is the fact that he didn't get here early. We know AJ struggled in year 1 to get his feet under him. He did play in spots. I think Iowa will play Yosei in spots, but I think Iowa did a lot of good in the transfer portal along that defensive line, and I think they're already going to be 6 to 7 deep. Would they go 8 to 9 and bring out Yosei at times? Maybe.
Maybe. You know what I think a lot of this hinges on, Corey? How often we can get them in passing situations.
Yeah. Yep.
Can we get them in the third and long? Third and long gives you a better chance on sacks, of course.
And typically,
so we got to be good. We got to be good on early downs.
Freshmen, edge rushers that are young and raw. Is it fair to say typically those guys struggle to run contain early? Like it's going to take them some time. You might be more comfortable unleashing them on 3rd and a mile. Fair?
Right. So can we get them in the obvious passing situations? That'll help our sack total, no doubt.
Thank you for that super chat, Erica. Let's talk about linebacker. Boy, you lose a lot. And Nick Jackson, Jay Higgins. Carson Shire, a guy who's dealt with injuries his whole career, but from a freshman, When he was a freshman, people were oohing and eyeing over his potential future, and now he's a senior. Jaden Harrell's a senior. Those guys have been patiently waiting their turns, and Jay Higgins is a guy who waited his turn, through the era of Jack Campbell, and it paid off last year. Could we see the same ascension from a Jaden Harrell or a Carson Shire? You hope so. But your confidence level at linebacker, you can't get much better than Seth Wallace combined with Phil Parker, DC. So maybe not as much worry as maybe on paper it would appear so?
I have a fair amount of concern, simply because those guys don't have that many snaps on up and down the field football. They've been good on specialty teams. That's a good sign. But we still have to see them do it in the game. What gives me a lot of hope, though, about Harrell, why couldn't he be the next Jay Higgins? I think that's entirely possible because he's paid his dues. And if he's had the same attention to detail that Jay Higgins has had, I think it's entirely possible that he'll be known as the next Jay Higgins. That's something we can hope to happen because Jay certainly played winning football.
And Nick Jackson played a lot of football, totaled a lot of tackles in college from his time at Virginia to Iowa.
It is one of my concerns. Can our linebackers be as productive as what we've become accustomed to? That's a challenge for a new group of linebackers.
And then a few names to watch for: Jackson Rexroth, Jaden Montgomery, Landon Van Kekerix. Those are some guys who have appeared here and there on depth charts, have worked in on special teams. Zach Tweed is a senior at Astoria County, Story City to be exact. So those are guys maybe keep an eye on, but I definitely think the top two are going to be important. Their health is going to be of utmost importance, Harrell and Shire. And Shire has struggled to stay healthy throughout his career. Cash is another interesting one, Don. It'll probably be Lutmer, but boy, they've had some good ones at that position. And you got to give Phil credit for just figuring out a way with this 4-2-5 to find the right piece, because it's such an important piece on the field when you're in that formation. I don't know that none of us have seen a lot from Zach Lutmer. I mean, I just know what he's got really good speed. He's a great athlete. He's another small town, Western Iowa kid, but that's got to be a position we wonder about with the departure of Castro.
Yeah. There was a time, of course, when people were concerned about how well Cooper DeJean would play when he was a young guy. So I'm not expecting anyone to be the next Cooper DeJean. That's not fair. But is it entirely possible that they'll come in and play winning football? Absolutely. That's the tradition of the Iowa program. When it's your turn to step up and perform, you do it. You realize, I guarantee these players that are new to a lot of playing time, they recognize it's a huge responsibility, and I'm not going to let down this team. I'm not going to let down my teammates, my coaches, and my fans, our fans. I'm not going to do it. They're going to move heaven and earth to get the job done. That's how serious they take the assignment that they have.
And certainly safety is another one, because you lose a mainstay in Quinn Schulte, but people seem to love Cohen and Tringer. Kirk just raved about Cohen, and it was interesting that his teammates voted him to go to Big Ten Media Days. That was sort of a...
That caught my attention.
Yeah, and rightfully so. He really hadn't played a lot, as opposed to his counterparts, Logan Jones and who was the other guy that went out there? Ethan Herkett. So, yeah, I mean, how much confidence do you have in Tringer? And then does the light finally fully flip on for former 5-star Xavier Wampa? Or was he just overrated? Ooh, we don't want to hear that. Was he just an overrated high school prospect, Don? He's been a multi-year starter now.
He certainly had flashes of brilliance.
He has.
I flashed back on a guy that I recruited out of Dallas, Texas years ago. And I used to be the pro liaison. So when the scouts came in, I did say about this particular player, I said, he's really underperformed a little bit since he's been here. But this is his money year, his last year. I said, I fully expect that you're going to be interested in drafting Damian Robinson. And that's exactly what happened. And Damian Robinson might have played 10 years in the NFL. I don't know how many years he played. but he played lights out as a senior, and he had been a mild disappointment up until then, but not that last year he wasn't. And maybe it'll work that way for Mr. Wampa, because he certainly has got the talent to accomplish a lot. And he's got the right coaches to put him in that position too. So I've got high hopes for Xavier. I think it's entirely possible that he'll have a huge senior year.
And finally, cornerback, your guy TJ Hall, up and down. Deshaun Lee, up and down. They got to figure it out. And Jalen Watson sounds like he's chomping at the heels of both of those older vets now. And I don't know who's after that. Is it? I mean, there's a number of, I could just start naming names, corners that are on the roster, Alante Dean or Rashad Godfrey, but I think it's those three that are going to be battling for two spots. And again, health is always a question. It seems like guys at corner get hurt at some point during the season.
You've heard me say this too, Corey, about corners. Part of the challenge is not enough to have one good corner. You got to have two. And I think back of that old adage, we're out camping out, and now there's a big bear that's decided to come after us. I don't have to outrun the bear. I just have to outrun you. Same thing applies to corners, right?
I'm not going. Hey, I ain't going camp with you anytime soon, Don. Go ahead.
You get my drift. If you're the weaker corner, you better get ready because they're going to come after you. So ideally, we have two corners, and they're not even sure they want to attack either one. That's what you need. It's not as if you can't help the weaker corner from time to time. You hear talking about rolling up coverage to one side of the formation or the other. Well, obviously, if you roll up the coverage on the side of the weak corner, it means you've got deep coverage on the part of a safety and behind him. And now you've eliminated the possibility that he's going to be getting beaten deep on one-on-one coverage. He's not even involved in one-on-one coverage. He's a flat defender at that point. Phil can do some of that to protect that weaker corner, but obviously you don't want to make a living trying to do it that way all day long either.
The concern has to be, do they have one strong corner right now, right? Like TJ.
Well, you're talking about a guy that can earn some kind of all-conference recognition. Right now, you can't count on it because they haven't done it. But I do know TJ well. As you know, his dad played for me. He's a great young man.
And it sounds like he's had a strong offseason. But by everything I've heard, he's had a strong, as has Deshaun. But got to prove it, right?
Those guys, I'm sure, have a sense of urgency because they know they're not at the level of Cooper DeJean. They don't have to achieve that level, maybe, but they've got to aspire to be good enough to never get us beat. That's the challenge that they face. And it's an awesome responsibility. It is a lonely place on the football field to be playing corner, especially when you have to match up against some of the guys in this league, because it's a challenge to be able to defend them.
Thank goodness they don't play Ohio State.
The good news, you only played 9 of those 17 opponents.
If they make it back to Indy and they play Jeremiah Smith, let's hope Jalen Watson has just turned into the second coming of Desmond King, because they're going to need it against that guy. But
Jeremiah Smith, how can he do that? And he's a teenager. Maybe he's no longer a teenager. Is he 20 yet? I don't know. Maybe not.
He might be 20. He might be 20 now. But yeah,
well, last fall I knew he was.
Yeah, he didn't win the Heisman. Who won the Heisman last year, Don?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I don't really care.
Was it?
I can't remember. It was a quarterback, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, was it? No, it was Travis Hunter.
Who again?
Travis Hunter, Colorado.
Travis Hunter, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, thank God you didn't say Sanders, because I think Travis Hunter. Well, where was Travis Hunter drafted? Second, maybe. Second or third.
Yeah, that I don't know either. I know he's with the. I
know he's with
Sanders
went late in the draft, as I recall.
Yes, Shedeur Sanders
Travis
went late in the draft.
I mean, what Travis Hunter was able to do really is incredible. I'd say he deserved the Heisman. Whoever heard of a guy playing more than 100 snaps in a game and playing well on both sides of the ball? He did it.
All right, Don, let's go to our final. Before we go to our final position, or I should say unit, There was a question here from Bob. Do you think Max Llewellyn could be our next great edge rusher? I said that last year. I mean, we'll see if that materializes, but he's got the size. Boy, he's got a great spin move. Probably got to develop. What does he got to develop, Don? I'll just throw that to you. What else does Max Llewellyn need to develop to become a great edge rusher?
Well, he's working hard to improve his speed and quickness, but he's pretty darn good already. I think the bigger challenge for him is to see more time at defensive end. Can he hold up as well on the run? That's, I think, the biggest question about him. I'd give him higher grades as a pass rusher. Now, I'm not his position coach, and they may feel differently about him than I do, but it seems to me he's been most effective as an edge rusher.
Yeah.
Not an edge defender.
Yeah, they need him to step up and be that every down guy. And then guys like Yosei, Kenneth Merriweather, those guys can learn as pass rushing specialists. You don't want your vet players being pass rush specialists, right? Like even Joe Evans, by the time he became a senior and a super senior, he had learned how to play the run, right? I mean,
right.
I think that's a natural course for most guys. And what is Llewellyn now? Is he a junior or a senior?
He's at least a junior. I'm not sure.
Yeah, he's a senior. He's a senior.
I think those guys understand too, Corey. It's not about you. It's all about the team. Here's my point. There may be as many as 8 guys that routinely share snaps in the D line. It's going to take all of them. You know, it's hard for a guy to play more than 45 snaps is hard on a hot day because you're going against a guy that's got a lot of talent too. So if you have to play 55 or 60 snaps, you know, there's an old expression, fatigue makes cowards of us all. When you get tired, it's hard to play well. And those guys condition like a bunch of madmen because they don't want to ever have to admit that they're tired, but they're only human. And the best ones, of course, do resist that urge to be tired, but it's hard to do.
I have a hard time. Don, I know you're just a machine, but I have a hard time just thinking when I'm tired. Just right? Do you ever get that way where you can't even think? I just, my mind's not even putting two of the wires together anymore, so I can't imagine. But you know, these guys are conditioning all winter and all summer, so that's part of the deal, right?
Yeah, those strength coaches are getting them ready. You can bet on it.
Okay. Let's move to the final unit we're looking at here, and then we'll finish off this show with some analytics. We've talked analytics a little bit already, but special teams, boy, talk about saving the best for last, Don. This could be the best unit in the country. Again, LeVar has done a phenomenal job. No surprise. He's been up for some other positions. I know he interviewed with an NFL team reportedly over the last year, but he has stuck it out at Iowa. Now his son, Mason Woods, is on the roster, so we'll see how that all plays out over the coming years. But that unit's really strong with the return of Drew Stevens really leading the charge. I think maybe the biggest question, I know people are going to chuckle when I say this, but it is an important position in the field. Tyler Kluver would attest to this. Long snapper. They actually brought in a long snapper out of Boston College. Sounds like it's been up and down from Ike Speltz. So
we lost one of the best ever, right?
They did. Luke Elkin, who's got a chance to be an NFL long snapper. So I'm not joking. That might be the biggest question on special teams. They're going to be strong at kicker with Drew. Don't be surprised if he gets a 60-yard attempt this year. They're going to be strong at punter, second year with Reese Dakin. He was really good as a freshman. He'll be better as a sophomore. And, Holder, I don't know who's actively rotating as Holder. I had this conversation with Tyler the other day. I mean, you're going to have your...
Dakin did it in the spring, didn't he? I mean, I'm sure.
Yeah, Dakin's hold... I'd have to think, and maybe I'm just hung up on this. Don, you're a former quarterbacks coach. You've got they're going to have 6 quarterbacks on the roster. Why can't you get one of them to be a gosh darn Holder?
Well, here's another reason to do that.
Yeah, I know the reason. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's called a fake field goal.
I like Tyler said, well, you know, the other team scouts that. I get that. They're going to scout that. They're going to know that he's a quarterback. But, okay, but it's another.
So what?
Yeah, so what? Like, it's another weapon to have out there just in case of a fake. I just don't know, like Torrey Taylor holding. What purpose does that serve when it's been on record that he's not real comfortable throwing the football? It sounds like Reese is a better passer than Torrey was, but they're both Australian punters. Why can't you have a Ryan Fitzgerald?
Absolutely.
Run, Don. Do you have
He's
Ryan?
got to be a guy that's on the bus, right? That's
Do you have Ryan Fitzgerald's phone number? Do you have Pat Fitzgerald's phone number?
I do not.
Somebody
But I
get
can
in
get
touch
in
with
touch with him if I need to.
Get in touch with Pat. Tell him to get Kirk. And I'm going to ask that question at Media Day here in a little over a week.
Remind you, that key game over at Illinois years ago, I think it was 1991. Remember that game? We're up 28-7. And Illinois finally stops us. This is a great Illinois defense.
I was born in 96, Don.
What happens then, Corey? You know what happens. A fake field goal. That's Hayden Fry's greatest call ever. And why? Because we were ahead 28-7 at the time. But Coach Fry was aware Illinois is going to be difficult to stop all day long. We need another touchdown, not a field goal. Incidentally, that fake field goal was thrown to Matt Whitaker. Matt Whitaker right now is our ambassador to NATO.
Oh,
that young man, we have every reason to be very proud of him.
Yeah, amazing story. Okay, so anyways, yeah, but just I'm wondering what they'll do at Holder. If it's Dakin, I just think it limits what you can do. And it was brought up. You go ahead, Don.
I just know that Torrey was a really good holder. I'm pretty sure Torrey's going to be the holder for the Bears too, right?
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if he's not.
Yeah, I'm not averse to it. I when's the last time they've carried 6? And maybe they've had years where they've had 6 guys on the roster at quarterback, but basically 5 scholarship guys, whether Stratton's technically on scholarship or not, plus a walk-on.
Incidentally, the guy that threw that fake field goal against Illinois was Jim Hartley, our backup quarterback.
And I did bring this up to Tyler Kluber the other day, Don, because it was a stretch between 2017 and 2019. There were tons of fakes just everywhere. Whether you talk about the pass over the shoulder to Sam Brinks or the pass to AJ Epinesa or the shovel pass from the long snapper to TJ Hawkinson who runs in around for a touchdown. They all worked. And all of a sudden they were gone. And Tyler says, yeah, LeVar's right. Like, he's not trying to, tongue in cheek you here. It's just the look that they've had. They haven't had the right look. And I've said, Don, I challenge that a little bit. I can't imagine that they had all these looks for 2.5 years. And then all of a sudden they've had almost none for the last 5 years.
Incidentally, Corey, I have to tell you this. This is hysterical. You're aware of the fake field goal where the holder starts to put the ball in and flips it over his shoulder, right?
Sure, absolutely. That. Yeah.
We did this, and it was successful. We showed a field goal attempt, and our holder flipped the ball under his leg to the kicker for a key first down. I've never seen it done before or since. But the beauty of that, they don't even see the ball up in the air. It worked, and it worked well. We practiced it about 4,000 times before we did it, but it did work.
How do you feel about on kick returns, 3 guys converging and then all spreading out and having to guess who has the ball?
You've been watching some old highlight films from
yeah. Well, how do you feel? Or what about what Kansas did a few years ago where you had a guy, was it the return guy that laid down because he laid down in the blue end zone to try to camouflage? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So you can get pretty cool with some of these trick plays, or they're not really exotics. I mean, they are, I guess. But when I hear the term exotics, I think of exotics offensively. Those are just trick plays, right? We're just talking about trick plays.
Right.
So, yeah, and like I said to Tyler the other night, that may be the fact, the truth, but I think I buy into more of the notion that, hey, 2020 was a weird COVID year, and then 21, 22, 23, they just had such crap offenses that maybe Kirk just did not feel comfortable rolling the dice with special teams. But now in year 2 of a new offense, maybe he will, and we'll see the return of those vaunted LeVar fakes that we saw in 2017 and 18.
Maybe so. The crowd enjoys being entertained. On the other hand, they don't work.
Yes. And of course,
we need to be reminded that they didn't work.
Yeah. We can't forget about the return game. One of the best, the best last year in the country, Caden Weegan, back for a super senior year, and his health is going to be obviously really important as well, whether he plays on offense or not.
You know what I love about Caden? He understands, Corey, when you possess the ball, you've got to hit it 100 miles an hour. He does that. And that's what gives him a chance to break one all the way. He reminds you a little bit of Tim Dwight. Or maybe some people say he reminds you more than a little bit of Tim Dwight. Tim Dwight still has the definite edge. No offense, Caden, but Tim Dwight's even better.
Isn't it amazing what LeVar Woods has been able to do with return guys? Like Charlie Jones, Cooper DeJean,
Yep.
Caden Weegan. Like, he's had stud
Let's not
after
forget about
stud.
Desmond King.
Well, yeah, but he wasn't a LeVar guy.
Oh, okay.
That would have been the White guy, whatever his first name was, White. I believe. But yeah, Desmond King was really good. But I don't think Desmond was as good as any of the other three guys I mentioned. Is that fair? Like Charlie Cooper and Caden are electric.
Yeah.
You know, Amir Smith-Marset was really good too. He was a really good kick return guy.
Incidentally, that's a stat we do keep track of. I've charted it for the last 10 years now. If you score a touchdown on defense, you win 75% of the time. And there have been a lot of touchdowns scored over the last 10 years in the Big Ten. If you score a touchdown in the kicking game, you win 77% of the time. It's 2% higher if you do it in the kicking game.
There you go.
So it doesn't guarantee a win, but it's certainly
reason
helps.
to throw in a trick play here and there this year, Don.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that was good. So we'll have some battles and positions to look forward to kind of monitoring. And, of course, we'll get a look at them a week from Friday, a week from Saturday at the Kids Day Open Practice, which is open to the public. There's a couple of questions here before we get to our final segment with analytics, Don. Erica says we need a Hayden Fry story tonight. So she's bringing out this one early in the year.
You're putting a lot of pressure on me.
Well, you got some time to think, Don. So let's see if we can
I'm
come
not
up
in
with
mid-season shape.
We do appreciate the super chat, even if he can't think of a Hayden Fry story, Erica. Lemansky says...
maybe I'll come up with one. Give me a chance.
Okay, Lemansky says, Hayden, looking down on our high porch picnic tonight, legends are never forgotten. Legends are never forgotten. Absolutely. Lemansky, he is a guy who will always be remembered for what he gave to this program, and I don't want to say resurrected, but the program, when you guys arrived in 79, it was not in a great place. Is that fair to say?
That's more than fair.
Yeah.
I do have a Hayden Fry conversation I'll talk about when we get the opportunity. Okay. I thought of one.
All right, a couple questions here, and then we'll get to analytics. T. Hink says, Coach Don, you may have said this in the past, but do you work directly with Kirk on the analytics in the offseason?
Well, I'll tell you, the answer is yes. But most recently what happened, last week, I delivered the analytics from last fall to Kirk. And his comment was, they couldn't have shown up at a better time because I got a 3-hour flight to Vegas, and now I've got something worthwhile to study on the airplane. And so Kirk left with that information. We haven't sat down and talked about it. Hopefully that'll happen, of course, sometime over the next week or two, depending on his schedule. So I'll let him know I need to be able to explain some of the stuff that you've already read. But I did warn him. Some of this stuff we need to talk about because there's some really, really enlightening information in this most recent report. Stuff that surprised the heck out of me, too. I'll let it go with that.
T. Inc. wants to know if I'll be at Kids Day. Of course I will. Be at Media Day and Kids Day a week from Friday and Saturday. Don, are you going to be at the open practice, open scrimmage that day?
Probably so. I haven't really thought that far ahead, but
okay.
We're saying it's a week from this Saturday, right?
Correct.
10 days away?
The August 9th.
The only reason I might not be there is if I'm at a practice a few days in advance of that. Maybe I won't bother to return just a day or two later.
But hey, you're going to get behind the scenes on that day, and you'll get to see another full practice on that Saturday.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so. We'll see.
We'll talk
Depends
about
on the weather.
Yeah.
If it's 95 degrees, no, I'm not going to be there. I'll be at one of those practices on a cooler day.
And you'll be at a blistering hot September game, I'm guessing.
Well, thankfully, as you know, game 1 and game 3 are at night. Or at least late afternoon.
Yeah, 5 o'clock for the first one, I believe. right?
Yeah.
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock kick, and then the next one's later.
What a strange time for a ball game to start. 5 o'clock. That's such a strange time.
You're right. Is that so everybody can have to eat dinner at 3 or 3:30,
or you
or have
just
to eat
wait
dinner at 9 or 9:30?
8 or 8:39. Yeah, exactly. Kelvin says Marv Cook was on Hurley and Gallery. I'm assuming that's a podcast for 2 hours. Honored Don profusely. Hope that Don listens. He mentioned the 40-year reunion of the 85 team. He said how great Ronnie Harmon was as a great teammate. So, Don, we'll have to find that. Send it your way. We'll have to find that and send it your way.
Don was one of the greatest players I ever coached. And what a great representative of Iowa football and of West Branch High School.
Esther says it's going to be really hard to watch Iowa. She lost a loved one to cancer. Our hearts go out to you, Esther. Condolences to you and yours. And we hope you're able to still find some comfort in the sport. And Hawkeye wins this year. Jason says he's looking forward to the athletics season. Changes coming on offense for football. And, of course, men's basketball, new coach, new positive attitude. Steve says, are you planning on doing tailgating or anything for the Iowa State game? Too far ahead. But I will definitely be involved there, Steve, in some way, shape, or form. So probably yes. Probably yes. That's an answer. Jason says, Hayden Fry story verification. While at SMU, did Hayden buy the first Ford Mustang off, how do you pronounce that last name, Don?
Iacocca.
Iacocca for $1.
It was either $1 or no money at all.
Okay, so it is a real story.
Yeah, there's a little story to it, too. SMU played at Michigan. Iacocca was at the game. Iacocca was so impressed. How can SMU hang in there with Michigan? And the comment he made was, SMU's team reminds me of a sports car. They're small and they're quick. And, of course, the name of the new car was in part because of the SMU Mustangs. That's true. I don't know if he charged $1 or not. Maybe so for tax reasons. He had to charge $1. I'm not sure. But I do know that car, that's a true story. That car was developed because of the SMU Mustangs.
Good stuff. All right, Don, final thing that I wanted to hit on tonight, and we can kind of wrap this show up and wrap it in a bow. Of course, fall camp starting this week officially has started. But you are the king of analytics, and as you alluded to here just a little bit ago, provided Kirk and the staff with analytics. I know Phil always takes a real large interest in those numbers. He's a numbers guy as well. But just talk about some of the key analytics that you can share with us. Some of this I know is going to stay behind closed doors, or I should say between you and the coaches. But what are some key analytics for us to follow this year that will be important for Iowa, specifically talking about Big Ten play starting week 4?
Yeah. Let me back up and talk 12 months, Corey. A year ago, when Kirk and I had a discussion about the analytics from the fall of 23, I mentioned them. I had a really good prediction model that he saw last summer in preparation for last fall. And I said, the only concern I have, Kirk, I'm afraid this prediction model will not hold up simply because we're talking about serious changes within the conference. We're talking about 4 new teams from the Pac-12. We're talking about the effect of NIL and the transfer portal. And I said, here's what I'm going to do. As soon as I know that the prediction model is holding up, I'll let you know. Well, that took about 3 weeks. It didn't take long. I said, it's not holding up, Kurt. And there's an expression, Corey, that you've heard. I believe Plato's the one that said it. Necessity is the mother of invention. You've heard that, right? I decided last fall, I'm charting games on a weekly basis anyway. What I'm going to do in season is develop several different prediction models and chart them even as the games get played out. And I alerted Kirk, I'm just going to tell you about the best prediction model based on the games that were played just the other day too. The most recent update of the best prediction model. I did that all season. By the end of the year, I was charting 8 different prediction models. It was frustrating. It's a little extra work, but it's worth it. It's for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Here's the rest of the story. Finally, before we played Nebraska, the week before, the midweek before we played Nebraska on Friday night, I said, Kirk, I finally got a better prediction model than we've had in recent weeks. I still remember the record of that prediction model. It had accurately identified the winning team 65 out of 67 games. 65-2 was the record of that prediction model. It involved 5 parameters. And it's pretty simple. You need to win more of those 5 than the opponent. Any 5. Any 5 will get you a win 65 out of 67 games. That's 97%. He was impressed. That's higher than it had been all year. But here's the rest of that story. After we played Nebraska, that 97% prediction model fell down to 96 because the exception that weekend was Iowa versus Nebraska, because that prediction model said there's no way in hell that I was going to win this game. Not with these numbers, and yet we did. We managed to pull an extremely large rabbit out of an extremely small hat. But that's what good teams do. They find a way to win.
And that's what Nebraska teams do. They find a way to lose.
Well, we'll talk about that some, but you're right. You're exactly right. So anyway, I started off a learning curve. Too many changes. I'm gonna track it even in season. And by the end of the year, I had a really good model. The sad news, it went from 97 to 96 because Iowa beat Nebraska. We were what we call a positive exception, right? We won the game even though we weren't supposed to. And we're a positive exception a lot more often than we are a negative exception. That's the history of the program. So anyway, talking about individual changes. You know this, Corey. I mean, you can tell me right now without batting an eye. What was the number 1 parameter last year for winning?
Turnover margin.
Nope. Thought you might remember. Average starting field position.
Okay, average starting
Remember
field
that?
position.
Number 1. 2 years ago, it was 81%. Last fall, it plummeted to 67%. It went from number 1 to number 16. You're thinking, how in the world does that happen? I'll tell you one reason it happened. There were 3 teams in particular that were positive exceptions in 3 different games. In other words, they lost on field position and they won the game. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. No surprise to you, one of those teams is Oregon. Why? Oregon is the kind of team, if they have to start off on the -10, that's okay. They got an explosive offense. They may go 90 yards. It's okay. We can overcome poor field position. No shock to you. Here's another team that did it 3 times. It's called Penn State. So Oregon and Penn State were 6 of those exceptions involving just those 2 teams. There was another one that's a little bit of a head scratcher. The third team that did it 3 times, believe it or not, was Washington. So here's what I learned. If you have a slight edge on field position, it's not worth much. And I'll even define what that is. I broke all 82 games down into 3 categories. You have an edge on field position of something less than 5 yards. You have an edge on field position from 5 to 10 yards. Or you have an edge on field position of more than 10. All 3 groups were pretty even. But here's how different the numbers were. If you're in that first group, just a slight edge on field position, you won less than half the time. Now, statistically, you'd think you can win a little more than half, but you won 44% of the time. The message there, don't settle for barely winning on field position. You really shouldn't even classify it a win unless it's 5 yards or more. Incidentally, 5 to 10 yards goes up to 69%, as I recall. Anything over 10 yards was 77, as I recall. Let me see if those numbers are right. I don't have them written down here. But anyway, the message is win by more than 5. And as you win by more than 5, with every increasing edge you have on field position, your odds of winning go up pretty steeply. Matter of fact, you win more than 10, yeah, it's almost a certainty. Not a guarantee, but there's a high probability that you win the game. That's 1. Number 2, explosive plays. We've already talked about it. Explosive plays actually dropped from 79% win to 68. It fell from number 2 overall to number 15. And here's the rest of that story. What's one of those that moved ahead of it? Super explosive plays. So chunk plays are still big. I would simply emphasize even more important to get the home run. 30 yards plus is better than 20 yards plus. Nothing wrong with a gain of 25. We know that. But better yet, let's still take some shots down the field. Last year, our shots came in the form of number 2 running the football.
Right.
Or maybe swinging it to him against Nebraska. Incidentally, that ball was actually thrown a little bit backward. Right?
Good.
So really,
That's good.
It really should have counted as a running play. It didn't.
It didn't? It counted as a pass play?
They still ruled it as a pass play.
See, that's ridiculous. I mean, think about that.
It was a very slightly backward pass.
Yeah.
I guess the way the scorer would look at it, well, they meant for it to be a pass. I don't think they meant for that to be a lateral.
Why does that matter? Well, I mean,
well, you're right. If you're the official scorer, you'd say, "I'm sorry, you threw it backward. You can't count it as a pass play.
Right.
It's a run." Think about it. That would have been that many more yards for number 2. He got cheated out all those yards because that was a great run after the catch, as you know. Anyway, the good news there, if super explosive is more important, those are the strengths of ours, both on offense and defense. If that continues from last fall, then we're going to win super explosive more often than not. No doubt about it.
So average starting field position, super explosive plays, and number 3 has got to be turnover margin.
Nope. Turnover margin doesn't vary very much from year to year. Don't get me wrong. Turnover margin's high.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it. Number 3, though, in terms of making a big significant jump, rushing attempts didn't move down like the other 2. It moved up 11%. One reason it moved up is because of Caleb Johnson.
Yeah.
Right? We ran the ball. We ran the ball more than our opponent. If we ran the ball more than our opponent, almost always we won. It moved up from 69 to 80%. It went individually from number 16 ranked to number 3. So the thing I've learned about analytics, typically, if there's a movement in one direction, that movement in general continues in that same direction. Now, obviously, why such big jumps last year, the fact that we had 4 new teams and the fact that we had a lot of change in our rosters. That's one reason why.
And Dino Chef just wants to clear this up. Attempts, not yards. You were not misspeaking when you said that.
Yards per attempts on pass.
Yards per attempt on. Say that again. You said what you said initially was number of rush attempts. Correct?
Rush attempts was not as good as rushing yardage.
So what was number 3?
Number 3 was rushing attempts. You're right.
Okay, that's we just wanted to
rushing
clarify
attempts
that.
as an individual parameter went from 69 to 80%.
Okay.
Typically, that's where it's been a lot of the time. So it actually dropped down to 69. And one reason it came back is because of guys like Caleb Johnson. And let's face it, there were some other teams that could pound the ball too. We weren't the only one. So it was edge on rushing attempts in general was more likely to produce a win, certainly, than it was 2 years ago. Here's one thing that hasn't changed, Corey, from the previous year. Close games. Last year, in 82 games, 29 of those were 7 points or less in a margin. One-score games. Now, I know you would say, isn't 8 points a one-score game? Generally, we think of 7 points or less as one-score games. And let's face it, to make 8 points work, you got to go for 2. So I think of a one-score game as being 7 points or less. That's why you always hear me quote 7 points and not 8.
Okay.
Because 8 doesn't guarantee, hard to overcome 8.
Right.
Not even score a touchdown and convert. And even then, you're just looking at overtime. At 29 out of 82 games, that's 35% of the time. More than 1 out of every 3 games is by definition a close game, a one-score game. Conference games only. Here's some interesting stuff to think about. How do we measure up against our competition? And we talk about national stats. And to be honest with you, I don't put a lot of stock in them because 3 of your 12 games, of course, are non-conference. I do recognize that Iowa State is every bit the equivalent of another Big Ten football game. But let's face it, those other two don't deserve to be included. And just for fairness' sake, I only zero in on conference games. I don't include the Iowa State game among this lengthy report because it's all about the Big Ten, of course. Let's just talk about some stats and how well we did. Turnover margin, you know that's important. Corey, last fall in Big Ten games, tied for first in the Big Ten for two reasons. Did a great job of generating turnovers on defense. We had 19. Also did a good job protecting the ball on offense. We had 9. We're plus 10 on turnover margin. That ties us with Indiana. It's amazing. Teams that end up going and having really good seasons, they do the little stuff right. They protect the ball. They have a positive ratio on turnover margin. So that's a good number, and that's historically where we are. We're always up toward the top in turnover margin, and that's a great stat to have on your side. I don't even mind admitting this. I talk about that 5-parameter prediction model. One of them I'll admit is turnover margin. That's no big surprise. A lot of people that know football would say, of course, that's one of the 5. Incidentally, that's how. Let me back up on turnover margin, Corey. That's a nice number. It's always a high number. I don't remember where it was ranked, but it was up there. It's in the top 10 for sure. I think it was 6th, I believe, overall. But here's what I do when I really get in depth. I look at +1 versus +2 versus +3. Let me give you a graphic example of why +2 is so much better than +1. Take you back to Nebraska again. Late in that game is 10-10, right? At that moment, we're +1 on turnover margin. You know what happened with Nebraska's last snap? Not just a sack, but a strip sack. With 36 seconds on the clock, I think it was, we just went from +1 to +2, and that made all the difference in the world because 2 plays later, we hit the game-winning field goal. If we stayed at +1, at best, we would have beaten them in overtime because it wouldn't have been settled in regulation. So that's how important. Anyway, numbers itself, I believe +1, as I recall, was 66%. +2 jumped all the way up to 90%.
Wow.
It was 19 wins and 2 losses.
And +3 was like, did we say +3 was like 96 or 7?
+3 last year was 100%.
It was 100%.
+3 the last 3 years has been 100%.
Okay.
Here's how crazy stats are. Is it possible there's still an outlier out there?
+4.
Believe it or not, +4 was only 75%. You're thinking, how can that happen? I'll tell you how it happens. The record was 3 wins and 1 loss.
Yeah.
You're thinking, who in God's name would lose when they're +4?
Wasn't it, was it Maryland or Michigan State?
It was Maryland in the early season versus a very good Indiana team.
Yeah.
Indiana was good enough, or maybe a more appropriate way to look at it. Maryland didn't turn the ball over once.
And Indiana took care of the ball well last year.
They did. They tied us for
That's
the
what's
league
crazy.
lead.
Yeah, they tied us. They tied Iowa in turnover margin, right, for the year.
As I recall, they turned it over 8 times in 9 games, 4 of which were against Maryland, and they actually overcame it.
Right, incredible.
I wouldn't recommend trying to be -4 and win a game.
That's incredible coaching, Don. Like, that's incredible coaching to be able to have an entire year where you turn the ball over that. Like, you never turn the ball over, and then you have, okay, we have a bad week, but we found our way through it.
Yeah,
incredible.
You did it 4 times against one of the lesser teams.
Yeah.
You played all these good teams and didn't turn it over once.
Well, at least they did it against one of the worst teams, and they could figure out a way to account for it because you turn the ball over 4 times against most teams in this conference, it's a death sentence. Turn the ball over 3 times, it's a death sentence for a lot of teams.
Well, historically, for the last 3 years, it's been 100%. 100%
And
win.
so they didn't force a single Maryland turnover in that game.
Not one.
Incredible.
It was 0 versus 4. I'm going to make it look because I wanted to be sure.
Yeah, let's make sure it wasn't a misprint. You had them flipped around.
Yeah.
There's a question from T-Hink. He wants to know, do you track this stuff during game? I know the answer, but do you track it during games or do you record games, look back? I know you look at a lot of box scores.
I do not do any tracking during a game.
Yeah.
I watch the game a lot like a coach watches the game. people have always asked Lisa, what's Don like during the game? She said, well, he doesn't cheer much at all. He doesn't converse with anyone really. He's just studying the game.
Well, no, that's not true. You just say you don't converse with anybody. You converse with people.
Well, people around me would say not much.
Okay.
We know. It's kind of funny. There was a few years ago, there was somebody sitting nearby, and people that were walking up in Kinnick, every now and then they'd stop and look, of course, and every now and then they'd see me because we were close to the aisle, and they'd say, hi, Coach. And finally, somebody sitting nearby, they said, to Lisa, they said, excuse me, why does everybody call him Coach? And she said, well, he used to be a coach. And they said, oh, really? Where? And Lisa had to painfully tell him, right here in this stadium. That's where he did 20 years of his 37. So that's why they call him Coach.
Good stuff. There's a question here from Erica. I didn't want to ignore this. Super chat. Speaking of Penn State, do you think they're overrated? Everyone seems to be thinking they're going to do super well. I'm not convinced. I know Erica's not a James Franklin fan, but Don, you and I talked about Penn State the other day. What are your thoughts on the Nittany Lions?
Well, I am an Andy Kolnicki fan.
You are.
And I think you know why. A lot of our listeners don't know who that is, Corey. You can tell them.
Well, he's Penn State's offensive coordinator, and he started out his career as an offensive assistant at Western Illinois under the guy on your right, Coach Patterson.
He was a great assistant for me, and I'm very proud of him because he's done a great job. And Lisa, we were watching KU. He was at Kansas before Penn State, watching KU with their offense, very entertaining.
Phenomenal offense, yeah.
And Lisa said Andy really paid attention when he was at Western. And I said, you know what, you're right, because the KU offense does remind me a lot of the old Western Illinois offense we had. I used to like to say, even when I was at Iowa, we're the kind of offense that can run from 300 one weekend and throw for 300 the next. If you can do that, you got a great offense. Because, what's an opposing team to do, If you can defend the run, you can't defend the pass. It's hard to overload your defense in one direction or the other. We're forcing them to play us in an honest way because we can beat you either way. We can beat you right-handed or left-handed. It doesn't matter.
And T-Hink, Don sits right out there with the rest of the fans. So you'll find him out.
Except I will admit, for that Nebraska game last year,
you were in the press box.
And I mean, it's kind of a cute story. The forecast was not good. You remember how cold it was?
Oh, yeah.
Lisa said, you cannot go to the game today. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm going to the game. I'll bundle up. Tell you what she did. This is what a loving wife does. She takes an extreme measure. She calls up Rita in the football office, Coach Fry's old secretary, and Kirk's secretary. And she says, Rita, I don't call for a favor very often, but Don is determined to go to this game, and I'm fearful. I don't want him out in the cold air because he's going to get sick. Can you help? And Rita made a phone call, and the next thing you know, we had a couple of seats in the press box. So I will admit, I was upstairs during the Nebraska game.
Well, everybody else was freezing their tail off, Don.
And then inside of that, you might recall who was doing the game. Paul Burmeister was doing the game.
Yep.
And I had a great chance to visit with Paul. And as you know, Paul's one of my favorite players ever. He got beaten up for not being a great quarterback. He needed a better supporting cast. Yep. He was a good quarterback, too.
An excellent announcer now for
yes,
NBC.
He is. One of the best.
Teal wants to know, do you have any thoughts on Bob Diaco joining Belichick at North Carolina? Of course, you had some time with Diaco at UConn.
I wasn't even aware that Bob is
I didn't know that either.
North Carolina. If he's joining, is he joining as an analyst?
It looks like he is the defensive line coach.
Good for Bobby. Bobby, of course, was a great linebacker for us. I still call him Bobby because I remember him when he was 20 years old. Bobby's coached D-line. He coached D-line somewhere else. I can't remember where.
LSU. Yep, LSU.
Is that right? So, Bobby's a great motivator. I don't doubt that he can coach any position. So I'm happy that Bobby's back as a full-time coach. Good for him.
And then Lomansky says, Don, when the staff voted to go to Iowa City, didn't you have two other options, Missouri and one other?
Lomansky, you're not wrong very often, but it was not Missouri. I'll tell you who it was. It was Oklahoma State and Mississippi State. Or maybe Ole Miss. Now you got me wondering. I know for sure it was Okie State. More I think about it, no, I think it was Mississippi State. Because I do remember Bill Brazier saying, I know one thing. If you win at Iowa, you only go to the best bowl game of all. And the last time I checked, it's never a bad thing to go to a school that's identified as the University of. And we are the University of.
That's
the
right.
great state of Iowa. So it wasn't Mizzou. Maybe Mizzou had some interest, but it all boiled down to Oklahoma State. And I believe it was Mississippi State. But the vote favored Iowa, and off we went.
No regrets, right, Don?
And then whatsoever, think about it, Corey. Without my coming to Iowa, I would not have met my wife. We would not have had our daughter. And I would not be retired in Iowa City now.
You and I have probably talked about this, but where did you and Lisa meet?
We met right here in Iowa.
But where, I mean, like, what was the setting?
It was a recruiting weekend, and Lisa had been part of the cheer squad. Back then, they called them Palms.
Oh, okay.
And they helped us recruit. And, she was an older college student at that point. And maybe my ripe old age of 28 was more appealing to her than just another college student. At least I'd like to believe.
Sounds a little, you and Gary are sort of similar. So I think, I don't want to speak for Gary, but I think, I'm talking about Gary Close, of course, people don't know. I think Gary met his wife when they were on because she's from Marshalltown, which is where I'm from. And I believe.
Take the iClub outing.
Say that again?
I thought it might be an iClub function.
It was something like that. Or it was when they went over to the Roundhouse to play, those off-season events. It was something like that, I think. Forgive me if I'm out of line there, Gary, but yeah, it's amazing storylines. But it's like Kirky commented the other day at Big Ten Media Days. If you'd told him he'd be in Iowa as a coach for almost 40 years, collectively, I guess is maybe not. How long is it actually? It's probably getting close to 40 years, isn't it?
Well,
it's over 30. It's over 30 because he's
36. Let's see. This is year 27, right?
Yeah. How many years was he with Hayden? This is 26, and how many was he?
Let me think.
Was he 10?
Let me get the years straight. 98 through 09, I believe, was Kirk. So.
Well, no. What do you mean 98 through?
I'm sorry. 79
through.
Well, what are we thinking?
79
for Kirk.
81
79 was our year one.
Through 90.
81 through 89, so
89.
9 years.
Okay, so yeah, I mean you're talking.
This would be year 36.
Yeah,
is that
incredible.
Right? 9 and 27
for just a Pennsylvania guy, right?
Yeah. Well,
and you're just a Texas boy. You're just a Longhorn. You're just a mean green.
Isn't it odd though that all those years ago we were off to Iowa, and then honestly I think I met Lisa maybe on the first or second weekend after we got here, because it was a recruiting weekend, and then years later, Brooke was born in University Hospitals and graduated City High, and the rest of that story. She lives in Iowa City even now, although she lives about as far away from us as she could. She's about 7 miles away.
Yeah, just stop there, Don. Don't tell people where she went to school.
Yeah, well, good point.
You could tell people if you want.
Iowa.
She did not go to Iowa.
She got a great education.
She went to another Big Ten school, a very well reputable Big Ten school. Let's just say that.
Absolutely.
No, Don, we're at the 2-hour mark. I know you had a Hayden Fry story, and if there's anything else that we missed, you're welcome to do that as well. But I know I didn't want to miss Erica's Hayden Fry request.
You bet. Let me hit on just a couple of more comparisons of us versus the other 17 teams. It won't take long at all, Corey. Red zone appearances, that's something we track. And the question is, how often do you get in the red zone? It's kind of hard to win football games if you don't end up in the red zone over any number of times in the course of the game. How often does our defense allow the opponent to be there? We finished fourth on defense out of 18 teams, typical, but we were only 13th on offense. Not good enough. That's a disparity. Fourth versus 13th. Something to work on. How about red zone scoring success? When you get in the red zone, let's face it, NCAA in their brilliancy, they simply ask, did you score or not? We don't do it that way. It's not a percentage of whether or not you scored or not. It's how many points you scored in the red zone. Was it 6? Was it 3? Was it 0? So I track points per opportunity. Incidentally, I weigh every game equally because I don't care how many times you did it against a bad team. I'm not going to give any more value to that than I do when you did it once against the number one ranked team in the country. I'm going to assign the same value to that one possession than I did these 6 over here. Hope that makes sense to you, Corey.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Red zone scoring success. This year, not good by our standards. 7th on defense, still above average. 10th on offense, an improvement. Let me give you an idea of how important that stat can be. 2 years ago in the Big Ten, Michigan was number 1 on defense, 1.92 points per opportunity, less than 2 points per red zone opportunity. That is phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a field goal's worth 3.
Right.
And they're giving up less than 2. Well, this past fall, guess who's number 1? Not Michigan, but Ohio State. 2.15 points per opportunity. What do those two have in common? Oh, yeah. Those two defenses led them to back-to-back national championships. So that's an idea. We haven't achieved that much success there, but we've been in the low 2.0s. We've been down around that Ohio State number of 215. Stellar red zone defense may result in national championships. That's the point there. Last but not least, explosive plays. As I mentioned, second on defense. Overall, we're second. That's good. 12th on offense. Not very good still. We got work to do there.
But certainly a marked improvement, though. A marked improvement.
But as I already mentioned, great in defending, super explosive plays. 4 given up versus 9 by anyone else. Off the charts good. And also above average on offense. 16 versus the average of 13. So we're making progress on offense. And we're maintaining a high level of performance on defense. Phil Parker's not satisfied with us only being 7th or 9th. He's used to us being 1, 2, or 3. That's what he's used to. And that's what they're fighting to get done again this year. That's all the analytics I got for you. That's enough to inspire anybody.
Whet our appetites for the year. I mean, it's plenty.
You still don't know what those other 4 parameters are. And as you know, Corey, just so the listeners know, you don't even know.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do after this. I'm going to spend, I won't do it tonight because I need some shut eye, but tomorrow I'm going to go through and spend about an hour and I'm going to figure out all of those parameters, Don. I'm going to figure out your whole formula in about an hour. You know what?
If you figure out 2 of those 4, I'll be surprised.
I'm not going to figure out any of them.
Your chance to hit on all 4, as you know, they're slim and none and slim left hand.
It's great. Speaking of that, it's a great segue into our Hayden Fry story.
Good for Coach, you bet.
Yep.
Coach Hayden Fry.
That's a Fry.
I like to tell the story. I don't think I've told it. If I've told it once, maybe a long time ago. As Coach Fry was coming to the end of his career, we're having the pregame breakfast, and as you know, Corey, the first people that get served in pregame meals are not the coaches; they're the players. The coaches, we choose to always get our food last, right? The players understand we have the priority over our coaches even. Our coaches want us to be able to eat our meal in a hurry, however long it takes, and then get back to the rooms. So, long story short, Coach Fry are in the dining room, and we're the only 2 in there. And we're just having a conversation as we're just in no hurry to leave. And he asked me a good question. He said, Coach Patterson, I've always wondered this. I always wondered with this. I wonder how much money you'd be worth if you were still working for American Express. Now, our listeners don't know this, but I was actually in public relations for American Express as a young guy in my late 20s, and I was making really good money and having fun doing it. We had Monday Night Football with the 49ers and the Raiders. We had golf at Pebble Beach. Jack Nicklaus would conduct clinics. He was doing commercials for American Express back then. The only problem with that job, it wasn't very fulfilling because all I was doing was making money and entertaining people. And I really missed college football. I remind you, Corey, even as a plebe at West Point, one night I said, I think I'd like to be coaching college football in 20 years. 20 years later, I was doing it. And 48 years later, I was still doing it. So I achieved my goal. But long story short, Coach Fry said, how much money would you be making now if you were still with Amex? And I had my head down, eating my food, and I allowed for a pregnant pause. And I looked at him and I said, Coach, one hell of a lot more than what you paid me. And he just died laughing because he suspected that might be true.
Yep.
Let me put it in perspective, Corey. I made $3,500 as a grad assistant at North Texas my first year in coaching. I did not care because I've never coached for the money. I've coached without regard to how we were paid. And as you know, it's easy for me to say, most of my 37 years, I was underpaid. Nowadays, it's not a problem.
Right.
If anything, they work hard, but if anything, they're overpaid. They're not underpaid. That's how I feel. That's my story related to Hayden Fry.
Well, we're going to get plenty more of those, Don, and it's been fun the last 2 hours to dissect fall camp and some of these analytics. And I'll tell you what, how about we do this in another 3 weeks toward the tail end of fall camp? We'll reflect on everything that we've seen, heard, etc.
My guess is you want to preview our first opponent as best I can.
Yeah, we'll take a deep dive into Albany, and obviously probably we'll look a little bit at just the season as a whole as well. We'll break down the schedule, and maybe we'll do something we'll have to talk about the spring practice, the fall practice, Kids Day.
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind, Corey, touching on also just a thought. We don't have to do it prior to game 1, but certainly prior to game 4, we need to preview the Big Ten schedule, of course, at some point. Doesn't have to be right then, but sometime maybe before September or shortly thereafter.
Absolutely. Well, Don, it's going to be fun to be with you for yet another year. You're what makes this show great. And folks, you all for being here. You also make this show great. Thank you for being here. Please hit that thumbs up button. Be sure you tell your friends that we're back. Coach Patterson is back. We're live every single Saturday during the season. And, of course, audio for all of our long-form content available from the Hawkeye of the Storm on your favorite podcast platforms. I am live with the one and only Mark Rogers, 4 p.m. Central Time Tuesdays on the Iowa at Voice of College Football channel. And then at 5 p.m. Central Time, we have a Big Ten show that Mark has launched, and I am with him for the first half hour of that on his main channel, Voice of College Football on YouTube. So, folks, thank you for being here. If you're interested in donating or sponsorship, all that information can be found in the description. Don, thank you so much for being here, sir. It's a pleasure, and it's a privilege to be able to do the show with you again.
It's always fun. I enjoy it.
All right, folks, for Coach Don Patterson, I'm Corey Brada from the Hawkeye of the Storm. I will talk to you tomorrow.